very busy room. It's just enough chairs for everybody. Great. We've got 4 major items on the agenda, so we'll get started. So first, apologies for absence.
Good afternoon, everyone. We've got apologies for absence from Councillor Spradell and Dodd. Anybody else?
No. Okay, thank you. Noted. Minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated. Any matters arising? Okay. Let's go to members' interests. Number 3. No. Okay. Board plan of cabinet decisions.
Forward plan of cabinet decisions and also decisions taken by the cabinet the last meeting circulated for members' information. If there are any issues the members want to highlight or perhaps identify for future scrutiny, please let me know.
Do you want me to mention?
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. It was just following the judgment on the parenting. I actually contacted the chair and he said, and then he contacted you, Sean. It was just a matter of actually putting it on the agenda so we don't miss it in future for a report coming back. But also to add to that, it does actually ask, the question is this scrutiny committee seeing all the high level risks that would have an impact on our workers at this scrutiny committee? And should we be having a look at them? It's just a thought, so it'll give us some idea if we're scrutinising properly, because we obviously don't know what the risks are. I do because of audit, but there's a difference.
Well, there's the housing forum on Monday for members. So members that attend are encouraged to attend that. Bearing in mind your request, I've spoken to Sean and we are going to have something coming on the agenda on that item.
Okay.
I understand at the moment officers are discussing it because the council needs to formulate their responses to the report and then we'll look at those responses. But yes, it will be coming. Right. Board. Anything else? So this is the library's consultation. Now, members are reminded that the consultation period has started. We've asked the library service and officers to come to present to us. This is about the consultation itself, about the proposals, giving us a chance to comment on them. This might at the end of the consultation, this will be coming back to us in April, where we will be able to see the proposals before they go to cabinet, so we can comment on them at that time as well. So I'll ask Wendy to give us a brief introduction and then we can move on to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Councillor Wendy Patterson and I represent the Long Holton Division, and I've got 2 agenda items this afternoon, both very important. And the first one is shaping the future of our library service. And so basically the way we read is changing. A lot of us now are reading digitally, and we have over 50,000 members, library members, and over 20,000 of those are actually coming into our libraries. So we want to make our libraries, if you like, more, how can I say, more where people want to come in and do all sorts of other things as well. So we need to have a real change, I think. And we want changes to opening hours, changes to the mobile library service, new ways of providing access to books and services in rural communities, the use of new technologies to create open access, self-service hours, and have some libraries possibly run by community volunteers. So all of this is something that we're having a consultation about, and we want all of our members of the public to let us know their views on the library service that we provide, what we can do to make it better. And I welcome this chance today to speak to everyone about it. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Nigel, who will take you through some of the ideas.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Chair and members, for the opportunity to come talk to you today. Much appreciated. I'm Nigel Walsh. I'm the Director of Stronger Communities. responsibility for libraries for coming up to actually 9 years now. I'm joined today by Sarah Green, Head of Customer Experience, and we have Karen Lambton, Head of Community Services. As the Chair kindly outlined, this session today is to really focus on the consultation, the public consultation we're doing into proposed changes, but we're also going to look at some of the drivers behind some of those proposals for change. But most importantly, it's very much a call to action to make sure we can get as highest levels of engagement possible in the actual public consultation. As the Chair said, the consultation began on the 16th, and we are committed to return to this committee in April, where we will give you an overview of what people are actually telling us about the proposal. So if that helps to channel questions at all, just guided by that. Okay, I'm just going to start with a little bit of background on the library service. You'll all know the libraries in your divisions. We have a highly valued, very busy library service. In terms of total issues, digital and hard copy, almost up to 1 million a year. We have some brilliant examples of good practice, a fabulous staff team. However, it's probably fair, as Councillor Patson alluded to, it's a very traditional library service in the way that we deliver. For example, well below national average in terms of self-serve. We're just below 30%. Nationally, we're looking at about 80 to 90% self-serve, and also some of the newer concepts like open access, we are behind with that as well. We have 29 branches across the county. You'll be familiar with your own in your division. Must be said, these vary significantly in terms of size, location, quality, accessibility. We actually, as a county, we have the highest number of libraries per 100,000 head of population in the region, and probably up there nationally as well. Obviously, that is something to be commended. We've maintained a large network of libraries. However, that can bring issues around consistency in terms of logistics to make sure that we provide the best possible service across those 29 branches. For me, the key point on this slide here is that what we do know is that only 7% of Northumberland population currently actively use our library service. And we know we can do better than that. We want to absolutely extend the accessibility and appeal of those libraries to a wider range of people, particularly working hardest for those who need it most. Can we just come on to the second slide, please?
Has somebody got the button for that?
Okay. I'm going to cover a couple of highlights on this one. Top left of the slide there, libraries are a statutory requirement of local authorities. They're not just a nice to have. And the Department for Culture, Media and Sport keep a very close eye on how local authorities discharge that responsibility. And they have, in the past, across the country, taken active measures to local authorities who they didn't feel were providing a suitable, sufficient library service. We've engaged with the DCMS right from the start of this consultation, and very much the messaging we are getting from the DCMS is DCMS are very aware of the pressures councils are under, they're very aware of the pressure that library services are under, and it's not necessarily about the overall number of branches, it's how you demonstrate you absolutely understand the needs of your residents, and very importantly, how you use the resources at your disposal as a council to make maximum impact in reaching those people. We just mentioned earlier to the Vice Chair, libraries are not just about books. Books are great, we love books. However, you'll start to see in the consultation documentation, those of you who had a chance to have a look at it, we base our offer around something called the universal offers. Say, we have the reading offer, we need to make sure that we're catering for that. we have the information digital offer, have health and well-being, and we have the cultural creativity offer. So you'll start to see, as we start to gauge public opinion on elements of the service, this will form the basis of our services going forward, as we do indeed nationally. As it's the need for change, what I will say there again, Chair and Councillor Patton, you mentioned this. We have significant variance in the levels of service available across the county, and we really want to strive for the best possible service for everyone, regardless where you live. I'm now going to hand over to, I think, Sarah. You're going to cover in terms of the opportunity now. So we're going to start to look at now at some of the drivers, the rationale for why we feel now is the absolute optimum time to suggest these changes.
Thanks, Nigel. As Nigel says, I'm Sarah Green, I'm Head of Customer Experience. And my role as part of this is to think about how do we offer our services differently? How do we make our services, across the whole council, more sustainable and more robust? In terms of libraries, we want to create a universal front door to take that community's first approach, that if someone walks into one of our libraries, they can get the support that they need, whether that be talking about one of our council services, talking about a bill or a council tax bill, or going to the library to take out a book, or joining in one of the fantastic opportunities and one of the fantastic events that happen currently in our libraries. So how can we do this? Well, what we'd like to do is use the fantastic skills that we have within the two services, in both customer experience and the library service, blend those teams together so that we have much more cross-skilling of the two teams, and they can support each other in delivering that holistic service, which will be much better experience for our customers. But what does this mean? It means that we will have to look at our libraries as a whole across the whole county. And we've looked, and as Nigel says, we have pockets of absolute brilliance, and then pockets where, unfortunately, because of staffing, sometimes we have short notice closures, sometimes we can't deliver the service that we want. So we're looking at how do we pull those two teams together to create something that's much more robust and sustainable in the future. That means we'd look at our operating hours in terms of the staffed hours that were in those libraries, and that we get improved consistency and reliability across there. So we're looking at how do we group those teams effectively, rather than having a library team and a customer experience team as we have now. It's pulling those together into different clusters and into one team where there would be 5 different teams. So we'd have a northern team that would be working out of all of the libraries in the north, and they would work together as a team to make sure that the right skills and the right people are in the right places at the right time, as with the other areas. We want to expand our use of technology. We're looking at how we can use technology better. We have some self-service machines. What could that look like? If people can check in and check out their own books, does that free up members of the team to be able to actually have those conversations and those in-depth conversations and have more time with people to actually speak to them and serve them as best we can, give them that advice and support that they're looking for. We're also looking at our mobile library service and the offer there. What could that look like? How can we complement our library footprint with the mobile library service? And how can we blend that again with communities first, looking at what else is available within those communities and how we can work closely with them. We're looking at some of our smaller libraries potentially being remodeled into community access libraries. So building on some of those current arrangements and introducing a standardised support package for those communities who want to deliver according to the local need in that community, because obviously the community knows best what's needed for that that particular area. We do want to look at where we've got co-located sites. We've got some fantastic sites in Morpeth and in Ashington where we are co-located with our leisure centres, so they can be open for longer because there are staff available there, and if we've got self-service there, people can use those library services even when we're not, that we haven't got the library or customer experience team members there at the time. And looking at our volunteering programme and community activities and events. And also looking at our estate, we're wedded to delivering the best services we can, not necessarily from some of the buildings that we have at the moment, because we know some of them are no longer the best place to deliver those services. So we are looking at that as part of the property programme.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, Sarah. So a little bit more detail moving on from that context and background, which sets out the hub and cluster library and information service model. So colleagues have touched upon the locality aspect and the different districts within the county of Northumberland. And this slide sets out with clarity the vision that we have going forward in relation to that framework and that structure that we are proposing as part of our library service review. So our libraries will fall into a particular category which is defined as a hub, a primary, a secondary or a community access library, and of course we have our mobile library service which is part of that. So our hub libraries are operational in our proposal for 45 resourced hours each week. Those 45 hours that we set out as a hub library operating model for Berwick, Alnwick, Hexham, Ashington, Blythe, Cramlington and Morpeth would mean that the library service would be operational and resourced Monday to Saturday. We have an ambition to build in a weekend operational time for our libraries that fall into a hub category, as well as one late evening. Our primary sites would be operational for 28 hours per week. And again, we have an ambition to build in a weekend and an evening operating model to our primary sites, which are Rothbury, Muller, Haltwhistle, Amble, Bedlington, Ponteland and Prudhoe. And our secondary sites would be operational for 12 hours per week. They would be over a Monday to Friday framework and not necessarily on a weekend or an evening. However, we're out to public consultation at this moment in time, and obviously part of that conversation, we're very alive to the fact that we will receive great feedback from our communities. We've had our first drop-in session with Sarah and I this morning at the library. It was 2 hours, really well spent. It was brilliant. We had a lot of engagement and really lively feedback from our local residents in Hexham. So I'm very, very confident that the consultation, which we're out to now, will give us some real critical data, which will help us understand the drivers from our local communities and what that operating model may look like when we've got an opportunity to nuance it a little bit more. So our secondary libraries, as you can see, are proposed Allendale, Bellingham, Corbridge, Newbiggin, Lynmouth, Widrington and Wylam. Our community access libraries, this is already in place in Northumberland. We have 2 community access libraries already operational, which are Hayden Bridge and Heddon. And you'll see from the slide that there is, in our proposal, we recommend that an additional tranche of 6 libraries are added into the community access library operating model. That's not exclusive to Northumberland. It is a typical operating model across the country, nationally, across our library services. It's harnessing the power of volunteers. It is typically, when a community access library is operational, it's typically hyper meeting the needs of those local communities. It's delivered by our community partners. And I think as Sarah alluded to, we are alive to the need that we have to create a bespoke package for our community access libraries to enable them to have the best opportunity to thrive and survive and be sustainable. And very aware of the unique qualities across each of those communities and how that PAL operating model may be achieved. Finally, just moving on to our mobile library service, we are proposing that the mobile library service, we've got a brilliant new van which was delivered last year. It's been received incredibly well across our communities, not least by the staff, but the people who use the mobile library service. And our proposal is that the mobile library service is naturally retained as part of our library service, but it moves to a 6-week operating model. But again, we'll have an ambition Sarah set out about blended working, about being able to come into our whole primary and secondary libraries and have that conversation about library events, the typical community activities that we offer from those sites, but also those customer enquiries that people might have about council tax, blue bins, garden waste, etc. That's a level of consistency that we intend to drive over the full primary and secondary operating model. And we'd like to do that across our mobile library as well. And if I just conclude also, not to forget, the library service never closes because we're operational on a 24/7 basis with our digital library. And I think Nigel set out at the beginning that that is a real growth aspect of the library service. Many customers are keen to utilise our digital our digital library service, which is e-books, borrow box, access to magazines and newspapers online.
So we are currently out to consultation, which opened on the 16th of February and it will run for 8 weeks until the 13th of February. Got a number of flyers here if anybody is interested. I'd love to be with all of your views. We are running until the 13th of April there. So there have been, as of yesterday, there was 816 consultations completed and 31 children and young people's consultations completed. Because we do have a separate consultation which was a lot shorter, more succinct for the under 16s. So there's a link there that will take you to all of the details. And Karen and I are currently on tour at the moment. We are in drop-in sessions at each of the libraries, spending a morning or an afternoon in each of the sites, just to speak to people and to encourage them to fill in the consultation, to understand their views. As Karen says, we had a really good session this morning where we talk into a number of people. We're also attending the Town and Parish Council, which is going to be in Bramble on the 5th of March. We're attending the Community Partnership meeting. We have got a social media campaign, which you've probably seen some of. It's already started. And we have a number of bookmarks and flyers and you know, this is our pop-up banner, which is coming around the county with us. So we are doing everything we can to engage with people, have those community conversations, understand what's working, what's not working, what could we do better, how can we shape things differently. So we will take back all of that information. We have got a few weeks to then review it, and then at that point we will start to really shape what our new service could look like. Because at the moment it's proposals that we're asking the public about, which we will shape, and then it will go back to, well, we'll be back here in the end of April, and then we're hoping to get to Cabinet in July.
Nice.
I'll just finish with one point. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sharon. Just to give the assurance to members as well, is that critical to our library offer, highly valued. They are full, these are not surprising to the staff. They were fully briefed prior to going live on the public consultation. Yeah.
Thank you. Right. So sorry. Okay. Assessment first.
Afternoon, board. Lovely to see you this morning. Even if I didn't get any chocolate biscuits. Tea was nice anyway. I've got a few questions here, but I'll just ask a couple of them, that's all right. And if anybody else asks anything, I'll come back to these. This first one's actually to Nigel. You mentioned early on about the statutory requirements and for the library services. If these things are implemented as they are now, would we meet the statutory requirements as it stand?
Well, what I will say is these proposals were not internally totally generated. These have been put together, working very closely with a library sector expert. The DCMS have had sight of these proposals, as to has the Arts Council, have a development agency, and in terms of, we feel this is best use of our resources in this package at the moment.
I mean, I understand that point, but I wouldn't want to sort of agree with something that's significant that actually doesn't meet the requirements, but we're all like that.
It's obviously designed to discharge our duty and go beyond that and give the best possible service we can with what we have.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that. I don't mind local library Hexham. So the things that offer up at Hexham, very good, you know, doing jigsaws and reading classes for young children today and all sorts of things, and that was very exciting. Just a question to the girls. I mean, I've already asked you hundreds this morning, but about these community access libraries, staffed, volunteer staffed, who services these libraries? Who goes in and changes the books and that and all that sort of thing?
So the community access library would be community led with there would be some initial support from the library service to get it established, to build in and make in the relevant skill set, etc. We would be supportive in terms of material, access to Wi-Fi, etc., the book stock. And obviously as part of that onboarding and learning process. We've done it already at a couple of libraries. We've onboarded one of our libraries at, I've got another block now, where is it? Seaton Valley, South Beach. We have taken in a cohort of volunteers and trained them brilliantly well, where they are confident, and absolutely love and thrive that the daily activity of the library. So the checking in, the checking out the books, etc. They can wholly, deal with that. That's within their remit. That's their purpose of being there. But obviously, we know that every CAL will be different. There'll be different levels of appetite across the community. Councillor Cessford, in relation to do they want to do that? Is the appetite there? There might be people who are incredibly skilled and very competent and know what to do. There might be elements of our community who've never volunteered before and need to have a little bit more of an intensive handhold to get there. And that's our journey when it comes to community access libraries. The important thing for us is to look at every one of those sites in a unique and individual way to make sure that we are alive to and appreciate the needs of that particular site and how we can collaborate and work together to get them started, enable them to be a sustained operating model. As I said, we've got a couple of libraries now which operate along those lines as community access libraries, and they do so brilliantly well and have done for quite a long time actually as well.
Chairman, I understand that, but for instance, this morning when I was talking about the mobile library, I asked a similar sort of question. What happens with the books? And you said there's a proportion of change on a regular basis, so that eventually the whole stock gets rotated and things like that. So who's doing the book changing in these community access libraries? Who's making sure that it's not the same books that are there all the time?
Yeah, there will be a dotted line to the library service, if I may describe it as such. So we have our library services. Nigel's spoken about being a statutory library service, and that's our 21 library, which we set up on the screen there. Our mobile library service falls into part of that as well. But there is a dotted line to CALs which sit outside of that. Now, one of the key areas of focus for us when we talk about community access libraries is that we know we can't just say, there's your setup package, there's your learning programme, we know that you're skilled, goodbye. There's got to be a sustained relationship, but it's a dotted line between the library service and those CALs. And when we have considered the future staffing structure and how we operate as a model and as a group of staff, one of the areas which is very, fresh in Sarah's mind and mine is that we need to have a link between the library service and CALs, and that will be demonstrated in a number of ways. But you're right, nobody wants to read the same book on rotation. It's got to have you know, new initiatives, new ideas, new stock that comes in, and that will happen. There will be that level of support to make sure that CAL's, that's all part of a CAL being viable and sustainable.
Of course,
You know,
yeah, thanks
yeah,
very much.
people using it.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. So we have a thriving library in Prideaux, which is busy most days. I just wanted to know how you're going to engage with those residents who visit the library simply to hire books. How are they going to fill out the consultation if it's just online?
We'll cover that Thursday.
We do have the drop-in sessions, and we are coming into libraries, and this morning we had, we've got a number of tablets and the consultation, I don't know if you filled it out, but it is just literally, you know, like, multiple choice questions where you can just literally press and on the touch points of the tablet, so they're fairly easy to do. We do have a number of, paper copies that are available if people do want to fill it out.
Okay.
So it is available in both formats.
So are those paper copies in the libraries at the minute? Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, and I think the engagement work you're doing is great. I was reading the report and I really like the idea of the smart libraries for rural areas. I think that would be really interesting to look at. My concern was for the mobile libraries, how does the transit van that is provided for the West compare to the actual mobile library that's provided for the North? And then also, just in terms of staffing for the mobile libraries, what would happen if somebody was sick or had to go or wanted to go on holiday? Are there enough people to cover that?
Yeah. So it's a great question. How do you compare a transit to a purpose-built mobile library van? And they're difficult to compare, aren't they, really? There's a different level of service, a different quality of service, I think, which is at times delivered by our mobile library team. So we are proposing to move to one vehicle, which is our purpose-built, purpose-designed large library van to circulate the county once every 6 weeks. So that will deliver a level of consistency. And we have 2 drivers who support that. So in terms of staffing, resource and resilience, it is well placed to, you know, it's well resourced, and we wouldn't expect to have too many problems when it comes to that. Our mobile library service, I think it's might be useful for you to know about the consultation stance that we're taking with our mobile library service, because yes, it's online. Yes, you can go to a library, request a paper copy, have some support to complete it digitally, actually fill it in good old pen and paper, and we'll still be able to take your feedback. But our mobile library service, we have written to everybody who uses that service. So that's either by email, if that's their nominated communication channel, or we've actually written out to them by letter to set out the proposed changes and to encourage them to complete the consultation. And there is a number that mobile library service users can use if they want to dial in to have some help and support to do that. So it's the proposal is one van to circulate the county on a 6-weekly basis, but it's the brand new van that we have. It will deliver a consistent experience for service users across county. We've had brilliant feedback from customers who've been able to enjoy the new mobile van. It's big, you can get on it, you can do everything, take a little bit of time. We've had some kids on, you know, doing reading classes on it, so it's you know, it's much more flexible. And yes, we are very proactively reaching out to our mobile library users to make sure that we can hear their viewpoints and their thoughts about the proposals for the change.
Thank you.
Councillor Dale.
Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing your report. Always difficult when you have to look at chops and changes and everything else. First of all, just to go on about the library service, I did note that the numbers, in fact, somebody said to me there's only so many people who use it in the West. If you look at the times when the mobile service is actually delivering, it's during the day. So basically you're hitting the older retired people because young people won't be there. So what I was going to say is we did have, and there's been a lot of, we've had problems, haven't we, with the delivery of the mobile services in the West, and a lot of complaints. And I've had responses which have been forwarded to me from the county council on various subjects. And I just wondered if there's an operative way of actually where the mobile service is, where people can actually reserve a book with the mobile service, because they might be working. And that's the point being is that we're talking about the rural areas where, you know, there's cutbacks in all services in the rural areas. So if you could find a way of having a place where somebody can go online, the mobile book is coming next week. I mean, I know it's only going to come over a long period, but it means that actually they can access and have a way of accessing.
Yeah.
So that's because, you know, somebody said, oh, there's only 185 people. Well, if you go to how many people in Kielder, how many people here, you're hitting the old people who are retired, you're not hitting equitable ages across.
Yeah.
So that's just, if you go have a think about that and see what the best way to do that, because a lot of the schools are closed, so you won't possibly have all the schools, but you know, there'll be somewhere. So just to think about that one. I agree totally about the differential between the North van, the famous van, or the van that wasn't there, or goodness knows what, everything else. And it has caused a lot of consternation and anger as well. The other ones were the actual potential of the closures. And this is something very strong, feel very strongly about. In Prado, there used to be an enormous library. I can't, if anybody remembers it, like it was the biggest one you've ever seen. And it was a liability to the county council. So there were three of us in the community partnership, Prado Community Partnership, who were looking for a home for everybody, basically. So we came to the county council and said, can we have it or purchase it or whatever? We'll build it. And we did. That was the special centre. And there was a lot of us, there was three of us, but we put a lot of energy and time in to develop that. And basically, it's a one-stop shop for the whole of Prado. Now, Prado is a much bigger town. It's got more residents than Hexham. But also, it feeds a bigger rural area because we have all the area around about. So the Stocksfield, Ovington, Port Horsley, a lot of these places that come into Prado and shop that go to the library. So setting back ours there, it's a model that actually should be rolled out everywhere. You can have a look, come and have a look. I know there's probably not that interaction that was there before, but that I'll have to say is possibly the county council's fault because they pulled out here, they pulled out there. So there is a bigger picture of actually looking at what library service is there and what you can extend and use that building for. It's there. And the Prado Library is probably nearly the most modern, up to date. But one of the people I was working with, she was a head librarian for Newcastle City Council. So we did try and get all the modern cons, but they're out of date now, probably. The other thing is, just out of interest, there was a period of time when the library service was a charitable trust. Yeah. And it was part of Active Northumberland. And by being a charitable trust, you didn't pay business rates. Coming back in to the County Council, you obviously pay business rates now. And I know that because I had to change all the business rates for the actual centre when you came back in. It's quite a big move back again, but it's quite a big saving. And I would prefer to see an operation where we are delivering a good library service because it's so valuable to more people, more hours. And you know, you can get your blue badge, you can get your badges for your library, you can do them or whatever. But I'm worried about the rural areas with the cutback in the actual service. Any way we can do to stop these cuts in a tangible, sustainable way would be good. So whether you've actually ever looked at that, I don't know.
Okay, that's a long.
You probably don't know. You've probably passed. That's all your time.
No, that's fine. If I may just come back, Councillor Dale, and pick up the first point that you made in relation when we were talking about the mobile library service. I think it's interesting and useful, hopefully, for colleagues to hear a little bit more context from Sarah and I this afternoon in relation to the mobile library service. And when you spoke about accessibility, trying to connect with different age demographics, in particular, different times of the day, then we are hopeful that if that is a drive or a need in our communities, then the people who use the mobile library service and anybody who responds to the library service consultation will set that out for us. But a different dimension that I wanted to share was when we think about rurality in the county of Northumberland and the mobile library service, we're thinking a little bit differently this time around, because we are alive to the community colleagues and partnerships that we have across the county of Northumberland, different organisations, the voluntary sector, and how we work very much at times in partnership with third-party sector, third-party organisations. And this is something that we'd like to consider for our rural communities in the county, whereby, yes, the mobile library service is part of that operating model, but we also have a really strong, thriving network with community partners, charitable organisations, the voluntary sector, etc., to understand what that rural offer could really look like in the county if we do sort of join forces.
I think, can I just say, Ovington, we've got a library, inbuilt library in the pub. We've got one in the church in Stocksfield. We've got one in the community centre in Stocksfield. Lots and lots of books, and people bring and take them backwards and forward. So that is one thing. I think my big question is, can you please look at the closure of Predu Library, because it is a centre, and I would ask you to look very closely at that one, because I'm against you actually closing, because it is the hub. So people come and go. Yeah. Everybody's in there all the time.
There's no closure to Predu Library.
They're not closing halving the time, cutting back the hours.
What has been assessed so far, but just for any
So when you take that meeting, that's all I'm going to ask you for.
Library. Sorry.
So sorry to me, I'm just asking.
Yes, sorry, Nigel.
Okay, just in response, just building on what Jill said, there is no proposals for closure.
No, I know you're not, but
I hear what you're saying, Councillor Dale, about the reduction.
Yep.
The proposal is that it goes from 44.5 hours to 28 hours, I think.
Yes.
And I think what I would like to just emphasise is that you talked about the one-stop shop, consider one-stop shop, what we've described here. Hopefully that will absolutely embrace that, will actually increase our ability, capacity to provide more first point of contact. And also just the point, just to say, the needs you've described in communities, it doesn't all begin and end with the library service. The library service is in a community building, and I think we also need to look to that building could potentially be open beyond the library staff hours, to lean into our partners. And this is all about having those discussions, Councillor Dale, to see what we can do.
Well, fine, that's all I want to say. Is I don't agree with the closing at half time. And please, could you look further? And I'm sure we can all come and meet down there and have a conversation.
Thank you. Just going back to mobile libraries again, sorry. I was just wondering if you could maybe provide a bit more information as to how one mobile library will be sufficient enough for the whole county.
Yeah, I mean, we do have we have considered the membership for mobile libraries and the active members for mobile libraries, and from those statistics that we have, we feel confident that by moving to one vehicle, which is purpose-built, better quality, better experience, that we are able to service the county on, yes, it is a different operating model. It's one rota which covers the county over a 6-week period, but you will be able to potentially borrow more books rather than the set number that you can at the moment to accommodate that longer period of time that residents will wait to have the mobile library coming around. And it will, we'll be looking at the routes that the mobile library takes. It might be that there is a more meaningful dwell time but for that mobile library when it does come into the community. So you're able to not have maybe a 10 or a 15-minute stop, but it might be a little bit longer. So it will be more meaningful interaction.
Yeah. Okay. So quality over quantity. Can I just ask one more thing? So after the review, if people thought we would need maybe another mobile library. Is there scope to provide that, or would there be no kind of move in budget for that?
We are working within, and I'm sure colleagues can appreciate a strict budget envelope in relation to the spend and the budget that we have. We deliver a statutory library service, and we are very focused to deliver that across 21 libraries and across a mobile library service, which is one purpose-built bespoke vehicle. Very much thinking about how we can work with communities and partners in particular to offer a complete solution to the community connectors and that aspect of that mobile library brings into those rural towns and villages. I think colleagues have maybe touched upon we're one part of that conversation, but it's how can we harness the power of working in a collaborative way with voluntary sector, for example, and our mobile library service to understand how we can deliver something which is really meaningful to those communities.
It's not just about meeting a statutory standard. We actually want to do the best we can with what we've got, but to go beyond that. And we do feel these proposals. And you've got to remember the robustness of the consultation is part of the consideration as to whether your service, should we go with this, is statutory. Yeah. And we feel we've got a very, 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 very robust consultation in place as well. So,
we want to emphasise that we will listen to all consultation feedback. So whilst we're working with a sixth envelope, if the feeling is so strong in relation to mobile libraries, then we will need to take stock within the fixed envelope that we have, which means we might need to change things around. But there is only that one set of envelope to be considered. But also for an assurance, we often forget that 85% of people in rural areas do drive. So there are obviously the alternatives around the boxes being dropped off at community hubs and things like that we're exploring. For the most vulnerable, there's the home delivery service. So it's that entire package that needs to be in consideration. Because sometimes if we only look at the mobile library van in isolation, we forget what is our role as the local authority, which isn't only our responsibility about the social connectivity piece, which is often associated with the mobile library, which is why Sarah and Karen are emphasising our very robust relationship with the voluntary sector around befriending schemes, around making sure people are connected into the local area, which isn't the role of the mobile library. We do that because it's the right thing to do, but the voluntary sector is there to wrap around the mobile library, which is around the bits that Nigel mentioned at the beginning. But we do want to hear the feedback from as many people as possible for consideration.
You know that a third of our mobile library users also come into our branches, right? So it's quite a substantial number actually, use both.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Desmond? Yeah.
And sorry, can I just add one more thing? Going back to you, Councillor Dale, we will be in Prudhoe Library on the Thursday, 19th of March between.
No, yes, I know. I don't well. Come squeak there too.
Yeah, I mean, I had two little parts I was going to ask you. One's an observation, one's a question. But you've just answered one of it, which was that the consultation was flexible as opposed to a fait accompli, and then you answered that to me this afternoon, this morning anyway. With the other part, I'd like to, I think it's important for people to know, and I bring this up because it's specific, not specific, but it happens at Hexham. And that was, I was talking to some of the staff there, and I don't know what she called herself, what's she called herself now? A blender or a blended, something like that. Well, basically what it means was that your staff are now flexible and all that. And you've been working very heavy with the unions on this. And it seems to me that the staff I talked to this morning seemed happy in the fact that they were being a bit more diverse. They were doing answering all of obviously what was it you said earlier on, council tax issues and things like that, as well as doing the library service as well. And that can only be a benefit. And so from the staff's point of view, they're happy doing that, being blenders, whatever.
Blending. We've worked in Hexham for a while, Sarah, haven't we, to sort of deliver a group concept in terms of that blended working to become a library and information service. So,
and we are looking at how do we create one team, so we don't have two teams that have been blended. We create one team. And so we are looking at sort of what does that look like in terms of the career progression as well, because there'll be much more opportunities in one service to do that.
And that's good. I mean, we've had some sort of slight issues at Hexham before with the council offering, as and when it was open for the public to come and ask questions on council tax and whatever. But if the staff there are, then it's going to be a better offer than we have in that library. And I'm assuming it'll be the same similar. Maybe that will be a similar sort of scheme. Like so, from that point of view, it looks very good. And I'm pleased the unions are coming with you on that.
Thank you. All questions? Well, it's not, then I've got one. The community access libraries, obviously they're going to be run by volunteers, but you know, who is going to actually legally own the books, the buildings, pay the electricity bills, actually, legally own this, and who's responsible for ensuring it and overseeing it?
Yeah. I mean, that they're all fantastic points, and it's a great question. And that's the detail that we will need to consider for each of those sites to understand what that CAL solution could be.
Right. So this could be a flexible model. It's not going to be the same for.
Absolutely. In the public consultation, which is out at the moment, there is a question about volunteering, and whether the person who's completing the consultation is interested to be a volunteer. There's no obligation, by the way. So if you sign on the dotted line, you're not then on board as a volunteer. But we do talk about it in the consultation. We do ask if that person is interested, and if they are, if they leave their contact details, then it will begin to give us a little bit of an impression as to what the appetite is like across our communities for that.
Okay, Nigel.
Just one last point from me, just again for assurance for the group. In terms of those proposals for the CALs, 5 of those currently operate in community locations. It's not as if we're looking for a dramatic environment change. They actually do have those links already with a host organisation for reassurance.
Thank you. Councillor Dale?
Yeah, can I just add on to what you're saying? I think one of the most difficult things with volunteers actually taking what I say call legal responsibility. And that is your problem when you've got that, because to be quite honest, people come in and do some voluntary work, fine, but when they have to start filling in forms, doing legal and everything you ask them for, which they would have to do, and actually, trust work and everything else like that, really puts people's backs up in a way, because they've retired, a lot of them. The last thing they want to do is go back and have more responsibilities like that. And so it's a way of actually getting volunteers in who can come in running, but actually maybe aren't in charge for all the assurance risks and everything else that goes with it, because then you really are putting something on and put people's backs up straight away. Oh, no, thank you very much.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and obviously that we have a volunteer policy at NCC in terms of that framework of good practice and good delivery to support volunteers and to enable successful delivery. So your volunteers are fulfilled, and those communities actually, receive a little bit of extra in terms of that service delivery. But yes, mindful of that.
Thank you for that. Obviously you've heard the comments of the committee. So you're going to be coming back in April with the results of the consultation, and then you can present those to us and we can give you our thoughts on that. So thank you very much. And those that you can leave if you really want to, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thank you. So next item is the North East Museums. I think Wendy's going to introduce this one as well.
Thank you very much, Chair. The North East Museum Partnership. Members may recall that in October 2024, it was agreed by Cabinet to join the North East Museum Partnership. And from April 2025, following a full delivery model assessment, the aim was to secure long-term sustainability and to protect and enhance our cultural offer, which is really important. So the year was always intended to be a transition year, and I'm pleased to report that the transfer has been smooth with no disruption to public access or learning provision. This presentation covers the Woodhorn Museum, Hexham Old Jail, Morpeth Chantry Bagpipe Museum, and it also will provide an update on the Living Barracks project in Berwick. If I could just digress for 1 second, Chair.
Yes.
could I urge you all to go along to the Woodhorn Museum? We have nearly 700 submissions in an open Northumberland exhibition at the moment, and that will run till May. And it's a fabulous exhibition, and we'd love to see everyone there. Thank you so much, and I'm going to pass over to Maria and to Keith. Thank you so much.
And I will be going to the exhibitions.
Thank you.
Right, okay, yes.
We've got some slides. Have you got them? Yes, one moment. Whilst we load the slides up, if we do some introductions, oh, it was there, sorry, Keith. We'll do some introductions and then we'll take you through just a sort of an update on where we are, sort of 9 months or so on from the transfer. So as Councillor Patterson said, Cabinet and all the Scrutiny Committee last year sort of considered a variety of different delivery options in terms of creating a sustainable future for museums, and the delivery model assessment very sort of clearly showed that a shared services arrangement with North East Museums, which is a shared services arrangements with other local authorities, and Keith will cover that in a bit more detail in a minute, was the best option. So that's what we've tried to do. Was quite a lot of work, worked very closely in partnership to do that. And, you know, big thanks to the team. It took a lot of effort, but I think what you'll see today shows that it has been a very successful transition. So my name, I should have started with that, is Maria Antonia. I'm Head of Economic Development here at the local authority. I'll pass over to Keith and Jackie.
Yeah, so I'm Keith Merrin. I'm the Director of North East Museums, and this is my colleague, Jackie.
I'm Jackie Reynolds. I'm Head of Finance, Governance and Resources for North East Museums.
Yeah. Over to you, Jim.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for inviting me along today to fill you in. So as Maria said, we've only been employee since April, so it's quite early days. But good news is everything has gone well, and hopefully we'll be able to reflect that. Just a quick reminder on who we are, if you like. As Maria says, we're a kind of shared service organisation. So we look after museums for a number of local authorities in the North East, for Newcastle, Gateshead, North Tyneside, South Tyneside, as well as Northumberland. But also we look after museums for Newcastle University. So in total there are 12 museums in the partnership. And the great thing is that the board, which governs our work, is made up of those partners. So Councillor Patterson, along with Councillor Castle, represent Northumberland on that board. So you know, it's not somebody else coming in and running museums. You'll still run your museums just through this partnership, if you like. And that's a really important thing to clarify. Now, how this works.
Sit down, Keith.
It's down, is it? Well, there we go. So we're just going to cover off quick. I think the presentation has been circulated, in fact, so I won't read everything on it. It's very word heavy. But I'm going to go through you pick some highlights and then just get into some questions. I'll show you. So we've covered that. So as Maria said, really, it's sort of quite a basic measure of success for this first year, which was that nothing would change. You know, we talked a lot about business as usual. You know, on that first day, people could come in, they could see something, you know, their local heritage. They could buy a cup of tea, and you know, nobody noticed. The staff could come in, they could get their emails, and it would work. I should say the staff couldn't get their emails on the first day, but by I think the second day they could get their emails. So that was not too bad. But so generally that went off very fine. But you know, when you ask me to come back in a couple of years or whatever, 5 years, 10 years, when you ask me to come back, you know, hopefully these are the things that we'll be talking to you about really, because hopefully more than just about business as usual. As Maria said, what it was really about was providing a better level of service for the communities of Northumberland and the many thousands of visitors who come every year. Growing the visitor numbers, growing the quality of the offer, and making it more sustainable, reducing costs, and you know, making it more sustainable through the activity that we do. Just a few quick headlines. We put some numbers in here up to the end of December. And that was a number there, 51,000. That was pretty much exactly the same as the previous year. I'm pleased to report actually that in January and February we've started to exceed the previous year. So February half term, for example, at Woodhorn, was 8% higher than last February half term. So that's really good news. No, the visitor numbers, not only haven't the visitor numbers tailed off, they're actually starting to go up again. Hexham Old Jail has also been particularly strong, even though it's been open fewer days this year than it previously was, is actually higher than it was the previous year. Loads of good numbers in there about engagement with schools and school pupils. But also I just wanted to flag up the point about community partners, because as you're probably aware, there's a admission charge on Woodhorn and Hexham Old Jail. But we think it's really important to make sure that people for whom that would be a barrier are engaged, and we use the community pass idea for that. So that members of the public, we tend to distribute the passes through community organisations that we work with, so that those people for whom the charge might be a barrier are able to get in using the community pass. And you'll see we've distributed all those community passes, and they're regularly used, which is good news. Because obviously sometimes it isn't just the money that's the barrier, often it's transport or it's some kind of sense of not belonging in a place. And the one thing we know about the museums in North England is they're very much about belonging, they're about the community and the heritage of North England. They're really good to see that. And then a couple of awards there. The STEM community, so STEM being, if you don't know, it's science, technology, engineering and maths. So a lot of the work that goes on, particularly Woodhorn, goes around those practical science parts of the curriculum, and we won an award for that, so that was really good to see. So just to talk about, don't worry, there are some nicer photos as we go on, there's a lot of words here, things, but let's talk about Woodhorn. Actually, this brilliant. Thank you to Councillor Patterson for the plug for this year's exhibition. These numbers relate to last year's exhibition, actually, but this year's exhibition is even bigger and better. I won't say that if you had a picture in last year's, this year's, but it's a brilliant exhibition. It's well worth going on to. And at the opening, for example, we had over 500 people there at the opening of the exhibition. It was absolutely packed, brilliant. And actually got a lot of publicity. It's been on television and on newspapers and stuff. So it's a really kind of positive story. As Councillor Patterson said, there are many more artists and many more works in that exhibition this year. But last year was brilliant and was very successful. So good news. But I think this year will be even more successful. Just to mention as well that the great thing about the Woodhorn site is obviously it physically is a coal mine, and it tells the story of the coal mining communities of the county and the region, but it's also a big site and it enables us to do a lot of other things. So you'll note there's a lot of work that's been done around the outside spaces in the last year. So physically those spaces are making them more accessible, but also using them as a resource with volunteers who are working on them, doing gardening projects, and also for visitors, and in particular for young visitors, to learn more about the natural world. And part of that, and you'll see in the bottom there, is this thing called Heart of Woodhorn, which was a big community planting project to create a heart-shaped, really huge, if you haven't been, something like big planting of daffodil bulbs. And what you'll see hopefully in the next month or so is that all flowering. And there are some spare daffodils so that we can put some in case the edges don't line up or whatever. But that was brilliant. So you can see there were 1,000 visitors helping plant over 30,000 bulbs. So it's like a huge thing. There's some nice pictures. Hexham Old Jail. I think we probably all agree that Hexham Old Jail has probably been very static for a number of years in terms of the displays, and probably not done a huge amount different to what it was last done. So it's been great to straight away to be able to implement some work to change that, but very importantly, working with people from the local community to do that. So you can see there's a couple of projects that have gone on. And I should have said before that one of the most important things about joining the North East Museums Partnership and us getting involved is that ability to generate more grant funding and more funding to do things. So some of these things about upgrading the Hexham Old Jail interpretation and working with community members and working, quite importantly, with people in the criminal justice system, for example, around the House of Correction, has been that ability to bring external funding to do. Also, should also mention Hexmark Club, because that was again a much bigger and better exhibition than it had been in previous years. So yeah, great to see lots of stuff happening in Hexham, and that changing the coming dynamic. Again, we'll see more of that in the coming year or so. Morpeth Chantry Bagpipe Museum. I mean, the museum is what it is. As you probably know, it's quite a static museum. It's a series of cases with material in there. But we've done as much as we can to animate that by working with, for example, the Northumbrian Piper Society and the Morpeth Gathering to get as much kind of music and activity and animation in that space as possible. That's what you'd expect to see in there. It's very also worth saying that we were able to bring along Heritage Minister Baroness Twycross, who came to launch the Register of UNESCO Living Heritage. So, and if you don't know about the UNESCO Register of Living Heritage, it's worth looking it up because I think there's lots of things in Northumberland that should be on there, but it's about how do you record heritage? How do you recognise the most important heritage that isn't physically embodied in a building? So things like music, poetry, dialect apparently doesn't count. I asked about dialect, apparently doesn't count. But even things like recipes, traditional recipes or things that are passed down through communities. And I think we probably all know things in Northumberland that would fit in that. But certainly the Northumbrian small pipes and piping is part of that. Right across there. Various other people. Just to say a little bit about Berwick, and then I'll actually pass on to Maria to say a little bit more. But what the council has asked North East Museums to do with regard to Berwick really is to look after the collections, to discharge the council's duties with regards to its collections in Berwick. And there's some amazing stuff in those collections, as you probably know, and to then support the partners in the Living Barracks project in the best way to look after those collections and display them as part of that project. So as part of that, we've done quite a lot of work. I mean, it's pretty also worth saying, because this doesn't appear anywhere else in the presentation, we don't just work out of the venues. We have what's called a community connector who works in different parts of the county, engaging people with their local heritage, usually with some reference back to one of the museums or the collections. And so Becky, the community connector, also has done quite a lot of work in Berwick, even during this period where obviously the old museum is no longer and just also to say that for the council, we've worked with the Berwick Visual Arts for their display of the Lowries, and that I think is opening this weekend on Saturday. So the two Lowries that the council owns that we look after will be on display there as part of my exhibition. Want to say a bit more about Living Barracks?
Yeah, so just to cover that, so the distinction here in terms of, so in the shared services arrangement, basically the local authority looks after the buildings, North East Museums operate the museum. And then as Keith explained, they look after the collection on our behalf. So the Northumberland collection remains a Northumberland collection, but we use the expertise and the team and expertise that didn't exist before, because obviously it's a much bigger organisation in terms of conservation expertise, etc. There is access to more of those dedicated skills to look after the collection properly. So in terms of Berwick, it's an interesting building and it's several museums coming together. So English Heritage has a collection up there. We've got a collection up there. The KOSB have a collection in the barracks. And obviously all of those partners have been working for quite some years now to try and find a solution to try and bring the building up to more modern standards, to think about how we can look after the collections for many generations to come, and really the conditions in that building don't really help looking after the collection. So all of that work has resulted in significant amount of funding that's been secured through Arts Council, through Heritage Lottery Fund, us as a local authority and a number of different partners to actually start all of the work at the barracks, which will bring all of those collections, all of those museums into a single offer. It actually links in to archives as well. So in terms of Nigel's service, the archives in Berwick are currently in not ideal conditions, but they will be moving into the barracks. So where the Mob Store is now, that is a temporary cinema. Again, it's helping us with the maltings being closed to provide a service. But in the longer term, that will become a permanent store, and there'll be search facilities, and that will be integrated with the museum service. So creating a community cultural facility in Berwick for generations to come, importantly, create the right condition to look after the collections. So there will be a single operator for that site under the partnership, but obviously that building doesn't belong to us as a local authority, it belongs to English Heritage. So that is a process for them to sort of work through that during the development process. But the development, importantly, has started. So you might have seen some pictures. Actually, there was quite a bit of news coverage over the last few weeks with the work starting on site on the East Block, basically sort of opening all of those separate buildings into a single museum. We are investing in the gymnasium as well, and bringing sort of all of that into a modern building. But importantly, over the next couple of years, what we're trying to do is use the collection to engage with communities as much as possible, and some of that on site. So where Northumberland Museums used to be in the Clock Block building, that's going to be the last in the parts of the buildings that will be sort of modernised and used. But that can be opened with the public being able to access it to see some of that conservation work in practice, to be able to see some of the collections. And then the Maltings Trust, also with funding from Arts Council, have been doing like an art-led public engagement using the collections as much as possible. So in a sense, with the museum being shut, we're trying to use the collection to go out to the community and show that off. And that leads very nicely into when the new museum and cultural facility will be open in 2028. So I just thought I'd give that update and that distinction. We're working very closely with North East Museum's colleagues in terms of the collection.
Last couple of slides from me. Lots of development happening at the moment, not least physically at Woodhorn, where we are repairing the historic mineshaft structures. So if you've been there lately, you'll see huge amounts of scaffolding being put around that, which is, aesthetically not, it doesn't look great, but ultimately it's going to be buildings are secured and looked after for a long time and kept as good as they can be. So that's a really good news. And you'll know it as well as the council's funding into that. We were able to secure quite a lot of money from historic England. So, positive story. Hopefully in the next month, I keep saying that you'll see the hardwood horn. I really think that's going to be something spectacular, and I think we're going to make some great photos as well. And some of the other things I mentioned there. I should also say that we've been able to be the sort of other partner in all of this is Arts Council, who provide quite a lot for museums. And we've been able to extend that, what's called the NPO, which is the National Portfolio Organisation Agreement, for another year on that, which is great news. And also it's increased slightly, which is good news in line with inflation. So that's quite helpful. So that's good. And I should say, because it's not all brilliant news, there are some challenges. And I think the main challenge is because of the picture that you can see here.
It's quite big.
The scale of the sort of repairs that we're doing to the pit head buildings means that it does impact visitor enjoyment. So there's no doubt about that. And also, I suppose the biggest impact is it means that we can't generate as much income as we would like to from the function rooms there. So one of the things about North East Museums looking after the sites for you is that we already run several cafes at our other museums. We already run conference function in business through several of those museums. So again, that was something that we were very excited to do at Woodhorn because it has brilliant facilities. But right now, it's some of those facilities are not accessible. So So it does have a bit of a knock-on impact onto the business plan we have on the site. We're working our way through that, as you would expect. And once it's done, it's going to look like it's our duty, isn't it, to protect these buildings for future generations. So
Do you want me to cover the last point about Borderlands?
yeah, actually,
Yeah. So as part of our very close working relationship, we're trying to find ways that we work together in terms of investing in the site. Obviously, one of those examples is the funding from Historic England to do the Heapstead work, and we were able, because of that, to actually do both of them at the same time, because the fallback scenario was do one of them and not the other, which would have been much more expensive for the local authority in the long run, having to put all of that scaffolding. As you can see, it's big. But the other thing that we're acutely aware is the utility costs on the site are quite high. So what we've done is try to think a little bit out of the box in terms of where we can access funding. So as part of the Borderlands Energy Programme, we put forward a proposal to actually bring forward renewable energy solutions on the site, which would bring down the utility costs, which are significant, as I said, but also give us an opportunity to sort of build in some of that STEM education opportunity, especially sort of thinking about the site from an old mine all the way through to sort of technologies of the future, and how we can bring in sort of those learning opportunities as well. So we've been shortlisted, we've made it past the expression of interest stage, we're building the full business case now, so it's not guaranteed. So if it's successful, that would be huge capital investment in the site on top of the capital investment that we've already been able to bring forward. So it's an illustration of that close working relationship and what we're able to do together.
Thanks. So thank you very much for that presentation. We've got any questions, Mr. Sesford?
Yeah, Hexham Ward is in my ward, so obviously I know it quite well, been there quite a few times, grandkids know it. Well, you will have grandkids, they're the ones too young yet. But I like I heard something you were talking about the House of Corrections, which in itself is quite a famous little building, and I know not very many people know about it, probably half the head, or even 3/4 of people in Hexham know nothing about it, down by the bus depot in Hexham. And so I'm pleased if we can sort of promote that a little bit more. I mean, I have these tour guides in Hexham, and I think they go down there and mention it, and it's got a little display board outside which shows what it looks like. So that's a little bit. But you know, it's had some past. I mean, there was one of the most famous people, Jonathan Martin, who set fire to the York Minster. I believe was housed in there for a while.
That's been confused with his brother John
Martin, who's John Martin Street in Hayden Bridge.
Didn't have very imaginative parents.
And yes, a bit of a difference between John Martin and Jonathan Martin, or Mad Martin as he's called. So things like that would be nice if they were built up a little bit as well, because I mean I love the Hexham jail. I haven't been there. I haven't been incarcerated myself. I know some people say I should be, but yeah, I just think things there. It's good that you connected in, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
It's pretty well saying we also look after so the Hexham Moot Hall and
the Moot Hall, of course, yes, which was a library, as we say.
The jail, the Moot Hall, and the House of Correction all tell slightly different but connected stories about.
Yeah, well, actually, there's a bit on one of the slides, which showed that there was 85% of people. Where was it? One local to Woodhorn. There it is. 84% of visitors Woodhorn are local. That's a place where you specifically go to. 60% of the whole jail. Well, of course, people come to Hexham for many reasons. There's day trips, bus trips, and all sorts. They may come to the Abbey, or they may visit the Queen's Hall for functions, and then they go, oh look, there's an old jail. I'll go and look there. So they haven't gone specifically. So I would suggest that's probably why. There's only 60% are from the northeast region, where 40% are coming from outside the region. So that's actually quite good. It may look when it's less than 84, but at that point it's probably better because it's attracting people from outside the region there.
Just one question about Woodhorn. The train, is that operated by you, or who owns that train?
No, it's a volunteer organisation.
So it's a separate organisation owns it.
Yeah, and as a local authority, obviously we're responsible for the site. We need to ensure that links in with the museum team, because they're operating the museum, but that is funded separately. We have given them licence to be able to operate the narrow gauge railway.
So there's a licence agreement between you and
NCC
as the landowner.
Yeah.
Fine, just wanted to clarify. Councillor
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Just quickly, the moot hall that was transferred to, well, I just couldn't remember that. But let's go back a long time ago. I remember doing the old jail when we had all the English heritage money. We were able to do that. They are expensive, aren't they?
Yeah.
So I can see sort of the person in charge of the account sitting there beside you. How expensive these things are to do and how difficult it is to do it as well. And just to ask you very quickly, the wood horn is super and it's a lovely, lovely thing. They used to call it ship to shore. You don't do a shore to ship because I know if I was cheeky and said the Northumberland line doesn't stop at a wood horn station. Not yet, I won't stir that one up, but anyway, that would have been a wonderful opportunity for visitors and things like that. But because of the history of the whole of the quarry and also the transport of the coal across to the northeast coast, to Blythe and across there, is there any history around that you sort of can do a bigger picture? Because I just think people, you've got your coal, right, and everything else. It's great to see how actually it travelled actually, and there's different railways and different things to Blythe, or even to actually how that was managed, because that's great importance and history of the whole of the development of the area. And do you do that? Or is it like, I know Sunderland have got one, but I don't know if you've got one.
Sunderland have got.
Like Sunderland Library have got a colliery with all the shipping lines, isn't it, where all the lines, the house, how it goes. So if you see the development of all the old railway lines, where they went and everything else, even the Staithes in Newcastle, etc. It'll be interesting to see how the product actually gets to where it's meant to be part of the destination anyway.
Yeah. No, I mean, at the moment, I don't think there's anything in the museum that does that.
No, I just wondered, it was just...
One of the interesting things I sort of skipped past it is that we have a series of volunteer-led exhibitions that happen, and we did a brilliant one last year around Ellington, because it was the anniversary of the closure, I think, of Ellington. Somewhere, yeah, it was the 40th anniversary of the closure of Ellington. Ellington, as you probably know, was the last deep coal mine in I think in the northeast, so in Northumberland. But that gives us, having that case and having that group of volunteers gives us capacity to explore different stories. So it could well be that, it could well be that's the sort of story that they might.
Maybe we should do some energy.
Because there's so many stories you can tell, and the collections support that. It's just, coming back to your point. It's the resources and it's the time to do that. But sorry, just to pick up something you said earlier about just to clarify for everybody's benefit, nothing's transferred to.
No, I know that.
So, yeah.
But it's if you're making things work, you want to put.
But the building responsibility remains with the local authority.
Absolutely.
So anything in terms of investment into the building and operating and looking after the building remains a local authority responsibility. So obviously we are always looking for opportunities to invest in our assets, but the operation of the museum is now a shared services arrangement. So it's not, as Keith says, it's not transferred. And then obviously in terms of the moot hall, just looking at how we can use that space in a bit more of a creative way as part of the broader partnership in Hexham.
I think one of the strong things that we've done in the last year is really built those relationships with the different partners in Hexham.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a big upsurge of interest around the Art Town idea, those groups. So it's been great to build those partnerships and then make the buildings part of that story and accessible as part of that story.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. So I really like that story of the daffodils and the community engagement aspect of things. So I was just wondering, has the community engagement side increased since taking on this responsibility? And if so, how will you be carrying this on further?
Yeah, yes, it has, which is good news. There's probably two sides to that. One would be
volunteering.
Yeah.
And volunteering is very strong in the Northumberland sites, particularly at Woodhorn. But because of North East Music, volunteering is one of those things that if you work in any sort of volunteering organisation, that it needs a lot of support. I mean, you know, volunteers need support. They need management, for want of a better word. And actually, in North East Midlands, we have a volunteering team. So actually, one of the things we've been able to do very quickly is bring all of those volunteers into our volunteer structure, which means things like health and safety, training, safeguarding, all that stuff can be picked up through that, which makes so absolutely want to grow more volunteering opportunities for people. I mean, it's interesting hearing the conversation about libraries. I'm obviously not involved, but you know, to hear about that, you know, there's a strong potential for volunteering in Northumberland, you know. And then the second thing is that sort of community engagement, where I suppose we're more actively going out and working with groups or groups of people who probably wouldn't otherwise get involved. And again, one of the great things, and this is something that was being done under the Old Museums Northumberland banner, but as North East Museums, we have again a communities team, and a team which brings lots of different skills, working with, for example, people in people with mental health problems, or recovery. So if they're bringing it, they're able to then bring multiple different skills to work with different groups. So yes, community engagement is definitely something that will grow, and also will, you know, but will be targeted to where those areas of need are, if you like.
Brilliant, good to hear. We've also taken the opportunity to sort of link into existing programmes and strengthen those partnerships. So the Ashington Regeneration Programme, there's a link in with the museum there, but also our Inclusive Communities programme, which is in South East Northumberland. They had funds for community organisations and enabling community activity. So again, we've been able to sort of link that through. So it's that strong partnership which helps us think outside of the box on how we use our cultural facilities as broader community venues and to reach out to communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, thank you. I think that's all good. So thank you very much for that presentation, and look forward to welcoming you back in the future. You can give us more updates about how things go. So thank you very much. So you can leave that if you need. Right. Okay. So moving on. Next on the agenda, we've got Community Risk Management Plan. So we've got Councillor Stewart's going to say a few words, isn't it? Start.
Few words.
Very few words.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the committee. I've actually just come directly from the library. We've got fantastic facilities and amazing staff there. Community Risk Management Plan is covers from 26 to 30. There's a really easy to read document full of facts and figures and generally about the county. And we will never eradicate all the risks of fire or the services which the fire service actually deal with, but it is reducing the risks here. So I'm going to hand across to the interim Chief Fire Officer to say thank you for all the great work. It will be a last meeting for here. Are you going to give a rundown, Lindsay?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Stewart. So good afternoon, all. So yeah, this is our community risk management plan. So there are a number of documents that, as a fire and rescue service, we have to produce legally, and this is one of the main documents that we have to produce. The document itself is our overarching document, and our strategies and our department plans and everything fall out of this document. So the document itself supports all three corporate priorities from the council, and it spans a period of 4 years. The document itself has to span a period of at least 3 years, and we've developed this one to span 4 years. The document is referenced within the national framework for fire and rescue services, and within that national framework, it outlines 5 key priorities that each fire and rescue service have to achieve. And within those 5 priorities, there are a number of things that need to be produced, the community risk management plan being one of them. And within the community risk management plan, there's a number of areas that have to be covered. So essentially what the community risk management plan is, it's our opportunity to have a look at Northumberland as a county, to identify any fire related risks, and then to consider the resources that we have in fire and rescue service and determine how we're going to use those resources to address and so essentially eliminate or mitigate the impact of those risks. And that's essentially what this plan outlines. So we have been out to public consultation, and that the public consultation has now closed. Any feedback from today that will be incorporated with the public consultation and will potentially result in amendments or updates to the plan itself. We did get a lot of feedback from the public consultation. Many of the comments weren't directly related to the community risk management plan. So anything that wasn't related to that, we did remove, and we've literally just looked at anything that directly links to the plan itself. One update that needs to be made to the plan is, as members will be aware, we are looking at new corporate values within the council. The plan reflects the current corporate values. However, the new ones will be launched prior to this being published on the 1st of April. So that's one definite change that needs to be made to the plan. And as I say, there's a couple of minor tweaks that have came in from the public consultation that we need to do. One of which is related to industrial action and how we would address the risk of industrial action from firefighters. So we are going to incorporate that. And as I say, any feedback from yourselves that may come back. And in a nutshell, Deb, I don't know whether you want to.
Well, I mean, I think we've covered with everything that all the documents that we've produced, including the integrated assessment, etc. So I think we've given you plenty of reading to do already.
Yes,
so happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Deb.
Just very quickly, have any risks changed since the last time you did it?
No, not as far
I
as.
just want to know if there's anything that's come out of it.
Not entirely. Well, then Deb, feel free to.
If I may, just not necessarily changed, but where we would have considered emerging risks previously, they're now actual risks. So things like wildfires. Originally, we were starting to think about those and the risk that those kind of instances have. Now they're very much part of our world.
Yes, it's just whether it's
the
risks of growing or whatever.
Yeah, and the risk of cyber attacks and things like that, that is more significant now than it was the last time we wrote this plan. But in terms of pulling the plan together, we consider the demographics and things like that. There's very little changed from when we developed the previous plan to now. So it's things like that that haven't changed really. But as Deb says, there are some emerging risks that are more now substantial, if you like. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, just on that point about demographics, obviously there's quite a detailed breakdown in the Our County bit. I think that comes from the 2021 census.
It does, yes, because when we were developing this, and also there's a new indices of mass deprivation.
Yeah.
And that obviously contributes significantly to something like this, but that wasn't published until the end of November, and we were already, kind of a significant way down the line of developing it. So, but yes, it is the 2021 census.
Sorry, just additionally, there is the Northumberland Data Hub that County Council is trying to encourage us to use, and a lot of the data has come from that, which is 2024.
Right. Okay. This is the one about the sort of the offences and criminal damage and things like that. That comes from that.
Yeah, from Data Hub, Northumberland Data Hub. Yeah, just 2024.
Councillor Cespedes?
There's one slight error on page 160 with that blame code for that. There's 69 elected members, not 67.
No problem. Yeah. Listen you off.
I'm having a look at the false alarms that you've got recorded. I think I might have asked this question before, but I can't remember. So apologies if I have. And that is, you don't seem to record any report for malicious false alarms.
Malicious false alarm.
You have false alarm apparatus, false alarm special service, false alarm good intent, but nothing malicious.
So we do go on to,
I could have missed it.
yeah.
So there's a real balance between how much information we share in the document and not having something so unwieldy nobody reads it. So we do capture the data around that, but the numbers are quite low now, which is great because it means that some prevention work happened. So what we've captured in the document itself is the top 10 most frequently occurring incidents, and then some bigger scale incidents such as welfare. Yes, yeah.
And one of another thing, which is possibly evolving, it mentions about the fire devolution and fire reform risks. So it says that governance changes under the North East Combined Authority may lead to the transfer of fire and rescue services responsibility to a mayoral authority. Have you had to have any ongoing discussions, planning with NECA about this?
So there's nothing came to the fore at the moment. So there is a plan. Nationally, there's a plan, and Northumberland's transition along with Tyne Weir and Durham, the Durham part and Durham and Darlington Fire and Rescue Service, a plan to transition under the mayor in 28-29. So it's a few years off, but obviously there was a devolution white paper that was published by the Labour government in December 2024. That has progressed now through Parliament, and I believe it's either had royal assent or it's somewhere near royal assent. So there's a definite plan for that to occur. It's the time frames that we're not too sure about, and obviously 28-29 for ourselves. There'll be a general election prior to that point as well, so the plan might change, but at the moment we're sitting in this in this period of.
So are we looking for like just a combined fire service, bit like the ambulance service, you know?
And if it happens that would be the case. So and it will be all the fire and rescue services that fall under the mayoral combined area.
Like combined contours and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Also, it's more difficult for us because combined area includes Durham, Darlington, with the two mayors in that area.
Yeah, of course.
So probably not been the first tranche.
Well, obviously, as a more rural area, I would be concerned about the money being diverted away from our service.
You kind of touched on that. I was wondering about the possibility of amalgamating all the fire services within the region, because when you look at your staffing issues, 149 full-time firemen, statistically, the organisation, that's a very, very small organisation to be a full-time standalone service. Do you see any benefits of, like they talk about with the police services, reducing the number of police services down to about 43 to 12?
Yes, yeah.
Do you see any benefits or pros and cons for Northumberland being such a small service?
Yeah, and I mean, I think any kind of amalgamation would bring benefits and it will bring challenges. I think one of the reasons why our transition is so far away is because there needs to be legislative changes around boundaries. So that's obviously not something that can be done overnight. And clearly, once the boundaries change, the alignment of council tax would have to occur as well. And obviously the challenge will then come, there's a significant amount of resource in Tyne and Weir, which is obviously my home service, if you like. And if residents in Northumberland are saying they're paying the same for fire and rescue services as the residents in Tyne and Weir, I think that's where we would have to look at potentially balancing things out a little bit. So I think there would be some challenges, but I also think it will bring some benefits as well. But how the detail of that plays out, I'm not sure at the moment. And as I say, there's been no conversations at the moment with the mayor. It's beyond the fact that she knows it's written into the into this bill that's progressing through.
So we may add, Chair, there's difficulties as well because of the Police and Crime Commissioner situation they're in now. It came to shock the Police and Crime Commissioner. And total council tax 9.45%. The PCC just put their third precept. So there's a lot of difficulties there, and that wasn't expected. So that's going to go in the mayoral, it's assumed as well. But our staff are the most important thing about the service, along with the residents, and the staff are working differently from other areas that retain firefighters in their own communities. So that's something very different from Tyneware.
Councillor Conlon.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. So in the IIA, it says that 75% of young people are deliberately setting fires. And then in the report you've done, you say that you have programs for young people, for young people at the age that they're more likely to do these things. And I was just wondering, is there like an advantage of doing it at that age as opposed to doing it before the age that they're more likely to do these things?
And I would imagine there are studies, but I couldn't quote any. But certainly, you know, in our experience, the earlier that you engage with young children and kind of articulate to them the implications of setting fires, whether it's injuries to themselves or whether it's diverting resources that can then not attend, you know, qualifying. I'm sure there will be research out there, but I'm just not aware. I can't quote it to you. But certainly we try and get into the schools as early as possible and maintain that engagement right throughout. Okay. And also when we come across incidents where children are involved, we try and engage with them at the time as well. But it isn't always that easy. But just when you quoted there, 75% of
it's in the page 244. Intervention work identified that at least 75% of young people deliberately setting fires and domestic violence in their backgrounds.
I'll just need to check the language on that. It's a really good point, because what it is 75% of those fires are set deliberately, often by young people. So whether it just hasn't been written as it should be.
So 75% of the kids are setting fires.
Yeah, I know. When you said that, I thought, so you made that. Yeah, that must be. It must be the way it's written.
Right. Okay. Well, that's just my fault.
No, I'm pleased you raised
it. It was alarming. That's all. Yeah. So I just wanted to know that there was more like preventative measures rather than just measures put in to deal with the kids at the time.
Sorry if I may, just to add on, to build on to that, so we run a fire cadets programme for young people who are 13 plus, and there is a review happening of that programme to see whether or not it's successful, it's doing what we want it to do, but also that age category, do we start looking at young people when they're a little bit younger? And the other point, I guess, is around schools education. So that's risk-based. For the delivery of the schools education, specifically around the deliberate fire setting, will predominantly be in the southeast of the county, because that's where we'll see the largest percentage of our fires. And that will be it'll be a number of different age groups depending on what the topic is. So if it's fire related, it will go at a younger age to try and prevent that. And the other conversations that are happening at the moment with our operational crews is around that engagement in the communities with the young people as they are leaving school, as they are literally finishing the school day and leaving the premises as well. So we're constantly thinking and reviewing, how can we do it differently, how can we improve, how can we have a greater impact.
Right.
Thank you. We're going to add on that one. We've got a boxing club as well. We've also got Project Shield, which is coming to an end. Hopefully we'll be able to salvage them there, because we've lost the government funding for over £1 million throughout the force area, and the fire service working closely with the police and other partners, and a really successful operation. But we're trying to get through funding, which I have challenged the PCC about that one. And the King's Trust is an outstanding scheme as well. And when I go and watch the presentation at the end of their courses, see that some amazing young people there, and they can relate to the fire and rescue service. So lots of things happening behind the scenes.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Yes, I was just quickly going to touch on the cadet programme, and also the King's Trust programme. Because in the west of Northumberland, do you still have a fire cadet programme in Hexham?
Yes, we do. Yes. And
the King's Trust programme is run from Cramlington, is it?
Yes,
so it's impossible for children from the West or young people to get over to Cramlington. And I know personally, from a family in my area, that this child was offered to go on the programme, but the transport stopped, so he couldn't get over to access the course. So it would, just to say it's a scope for putting that transport back on.
Yeah, no, we'll take that back and we'll ask some questions around that. It's a good point. No, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sim.
My questions regarding the intervention with the issues of fires in South East Northumberland. I know you do a lot of intervention work in primary. What level do you do at secondary stage? Because a lot of them are secondary. I know you educate primary, going and speak to the kids in primary school, but you don't see a lot of that in secondary schools. Is there more you could do with that? Or?
And in my experience, unless Deb's going to come in, and I'm just speaking about when I was on a fire station, it's really challenging to get into the curriculum in secondary schools. Everything's so tight. Yeah. Getting the time in with the schools is really difficult. So we find that the best way to engage with kind of young adults, if you like, is go to the youth clubs, but also going to the places where they hang out, if you like, and trying to engage with them that way. There's been initiatives elsewhere in the country whereby fire and rescue services and police forces come together and they hire out areas to play football and things and try and encourage kids to come there and engage with them that way. So trying to find anything that, you know, you can kind of get them in a room or get them in a space so you can have those conversations with them. But yeah, in my experience, getting into the schools, it's really difficult because of the lesson plans and things like that.
Yeah. See, the problem with that though is I think it's important that they should be made to do it, because a lot of people are not, when kids are not want to do it, they want to do their own thing, and a lot of it hanging around with like around on the like in the streets and things, and especially in the summer they do a lot of wildfires in the woods at Ashton, the community woods. There's a lot of issues in there, beaches, Jarridge Bay, and I think it's important to push that they do make the time in secondary school, because I think if they don't, then we're going to kind of venture into the problem, and it's increasing a lot year by year. So I do think it's important that the schools should be making, even if it's just taking an hour out once a term, maybe once a year even, just to do that. It's not a lot to ask for them, I don't think.
Yeah, and that is something that we'll keep pushing on. And I know, you know, when there is kind of hotspots, if you like, for constant deliberate fires, we often raise initiatives and things like that and work with the police. And we did one last year, but I can't remember where it was. And that was due to a number of fires in like wooded areas. I think it was around Cramley. Was it? Yes, yeah. So we have run initiatives, but yeah, as I said, it isn't that we wouldn't be willing to go into the schools, it's just getting the time.
As well, not just fire, but there's a lot of issues with kids getting access to vehicles, like 14, 15-year-olds. Accessing, I wouldn't even say that, kind of feeling them. They're getting access to them and driving around, and I think they need to be as well with the motorised scooters and things. They need to be working as that with that as well, to kind of stop them from like using them and making it so that they're aware of the consequences of what they're doing, and the impacts if they do have an accident. I don't think like that concept of what the risks are that they're taking.
Chair, I know we spoke the other night about Project Shield, and I know you're great support of trying to deal with issues which you described there. Can we have a conversation outside the room sometime? And if anything particular, raise Either me personally or an email there, and I'll take it forward.
Thank you very much. Okay, councillor Dale.
Yeah, just to say thank you very much, and just to bring it all together, I think you should do some really great job in the communities. And every time I go to school or something, the fire engine's there, the kids are all dashing to get on, driving and blow the horn. And it does actually, but they do actually enjoy it, and they listen to what your fire officers are saying. So real credibility, and also the amount of work that you've been doing along the riverside, all over, and it's really good. But the big thing about that is getting partners together, because everybody's got all kinds of information, and all you need is just block one WhatsApp. Believe it or not, you can make a lot of difference. But that's only from getting the information, so you know what you do and everything else. But it's to share with you, and thank you very much.
Yes, and thank you very much for the typo's responsibility of Councillor Stuart Hills. Right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we will move on to the next thing, which is last but not least, section 38 agreements. So this is Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for having us here for our first highways report this term. This is a very emotive subject that affects many residents from right across Northumberland. So this is a report about the constraints and the challenges we have as a local authority, and what positive steps and positive work the team's trying to take to take out some of the challenges, really. So I'll hand over to Chris Westby, who's the head of highways, to present the report.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome everybody. I've met everyone, I think, but I'm Chris Westby from Highways. In the role for about a year now. I agree with Councillor Mather, it's a very emotive subject, especially when we've got residents purchasing properties up to 400,000 plus homes, and the bins are getting emptied, the roads aren't getting gritted, and the roads aren't in the standard we want. So I'm not going to go through the report in detail. The report does refer to appendices and plans around the Seaton Vale site. If anyone wants those plans, I can share them, but I'm putting in the report, which highlights the two phases of that. But I can explain further on that. So Section 38 agreement enables the council to adopt any roads or footpaths to the council's specification and to the standard of the design manual for roads and bridges and the design for highway and roads and streets. So that our role, the team's role in that, is to make sure that are constructed properly in line with those specifications into the council standard and to what's been agreed at the planning stage, to ensure that that can be maintained at public expense. So we've seen an increase over the last 10 years in development across Northumberland. And we've got a team of 11 staff currently who work through over 1,100 submissions through planning. So 2025-26, we've had 1,100 submissions go through the team. That's not just 38s, that could be 278s and just general house extensions where they're interfacing with us. Their role is a consultation through the planning process. So we're the technical authority on highways designs and highways integration on new developments. So we negotiate those Section 38 agreements with the developer if the developer wants to have a Section 38 agreement. It's voluntary, it's developer led, it's up to them if they want to engage. We've got no powers to enforce that. We've got no powers to put a planning condition on the developer to go, once you build 20 dwellings, you must adopt this, you must get this up to the standard, you must do that. We're at the behest of the developer. So what the team do, they'll assess the technical drawings at stage one. They'll be agreed. They'll negotiate and manage the 38 agreement. They'll then go and inspect the works prior to adoption and liaise with the developer throughout that process. Again, it's up to the developers to tell us what stage each site's at. So when we can go out and inspect and get the labs out and test materials and test product to make sure everything's up to standard. The big function is to protect the council of that team. If we don't get those roads and footpaths and drainage right into the standard specification, that could have a significant revenue impact going forward, because if we adopt those roads or footpaths, then it's our highways revenue budget that's got to pick up those defects if the team doesn't deliver the service. It's a funded team. There's no revenue pressure. It's a self-funding department. So if anything changes or moves, we can adjust to suit. So again, touched on, we've got increased numbers coming through. Where we face challenges is the process complexity is a complex process. We can, for an example, we could say to a developer, if you're building X amount of dwellings, we want a roundabout coming off the highway into your road. But we've got to prove that that works through the modelling, and they can push back, they can appeal. If they can put traffic modelling in that suggests that county council, you might want a roundabout because it's the A1068, A6956, but we can prove otherwise. They can go to adjudication, they can challenge that. So it's very, very difficult. We get challenged through developer submissions. Sometimes the drawings aren't quite right. They haven't interpreted the planning in the right way, or what standards we've applied. It's the communication and visibility is very difficult as well with the developers of Persimmon and Bellways. You've got technical directors sitting there who it's all council's fault. You're not doing this, you're not doing that. So that relationship can be fractious, which we need to improve on go forward. The guidance is there's the standard, design to that standard. There's no deviation from that standard. So we're tied in nationally by design standards and design regulations. The Seaton Vale estate, which is mentioned in the report, I don't know if anyone knows of Seaton Vale. That's sitting on the group, so we know it's next to One Bed Hospital. It's a huge development. It's been ongoing for years and years and years. There's two developments like that around Ashton. You've got the one on the Colbury Road, just on the north of Ashton as well. It's really, really complex. But again, we're working with the developers. We're trying to get the roads adopted. But there's key points to try and link up to the highway, which they need to do, and they need to deliver to the standard that we want to allow them to go ahead. But the key points are in the report. What we're looking at and what we're doing to try and improve is engage further with developers. So I'm planning to get all the technical directors in from the main development, Persimmons, we've got Vistry Homes, we've got Bellways and such like, to come into County Hall, meet the team, meet us, meet with planning as well. We'll bring the plan, a couple of key planning officers in, and just have a kind of a mini workshop to go, right, what issues have been, because this isn't new. It's not just Northumberland. This is a national problem. It's national across all authorities, and just try and pick holes in where we can see where they've had the pressures and where they felt possibly let down by the authority, or vice versa. We want to see we want to impose more standards and more specifications on your development, so there's no holes to pick in what we do in the future. The challenge I have as head of service is a lot of these decisions have been made over the last 10, 15, 5 years. So trying to challenge and push back on that is very, very difficult. So we've had members come where you've built a new development and the original drawings of the residents that the residents have been given and put a roundabout on the main road. But through challenge and through the planning process, the roundabout's then been removed, and it's just gone to a standard junction. Now you've got residents there going, where's my roundabout? So you've got those constant challenges to go back and go, well, look, this is the process, this is what's happened, this is what's gone through. So it's just trying to educate and get across to residents. Look at the impacts from developers, try and work with developers more. So that should be in the next couple of months, see where we get with that. And then we've employed 2 new members of the Highways Development Management team recently. And they're from the external side, so they know what it's like to work on the developer side. So we should get some good positive change and step change through our processes. So just to go on to the Section 38 processes, we've got it in 3 parts. But part 1 is sign up to the agreement, sign up to the Section 38, get your roads and footpaths to a standard. So that could be, we call it like binder course level. So when you see the open aggregate, the top surface isn't quite on and the ironwork's exposed. If we agree with that, then we'll sign off a part 1 certificate, which then releases so much of the bond that we keep as part of the Section 38 agreement. So there's part 1. Part 2 then goes further, so that the roads and streets get developed further, but then Northumbrian water sewers come into play. So we can't adopt the highway unless Northumbrian Water have agreed that the sewers and all the drainage work are up to standard and it's going to be adopted. Once that's agreed, that is then part 2 signed off. Part 3 is full completion. Street lighting's agreed, sewers are agreed, and roads are up to standard. And all details are complete. There's 3 parts to the section 33. But challenging, complex, and difficult for the authority to manage and enforce, because we're reliant a lot on developers who want to sell houses.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dale?
Yeah, I'm just going to start. So, thank you very much. I think the more the public knew about the legislation you have to go through, and all the hoops, legal hoops you have to go through, and all the hierarchy of highways maintenance and everything else, they might have a bigger, better understanding about the massive amount of work you have to do. Because it isn't just straightforward. You don't write the script, it's written for you. Can I just ask you 1 or 2 things? Bonds.
Yeah.
I've had a case where the bond actually, the company went bankrupt and get one, but by the time we got through it, the bond actually didn't have the value of the workloads. How do you overcome that? Is broadband a utility?
Yeah.
Sorry. Full habit. I think that's one of the things. The other one was quickly is about people putting new accesses in on the pavement. So if they put an access on the pavement, dig it up without understanding there's something underneath, like gully or drain generally, and they disturb it, cover it up. Is there a legal way that anybody who does anything that has to come through the remit of planning or highways?
Okay, so bond, it depends how long the development's gone on. We don't add inflation. We add a minimal amount. So when we put a 38 forward, we'll charge 7.5% of total value, or a minimum of £1,000 for the inspections. So that's bond. Medburn is a good example. So Medburn Estates went to full council. That company's gone into liquidation. There was a bond attached to that. So then we've had to engage. So it's one of the first times the council have done that. So we've done, in my role, I've said, right, we'll go for surety. Legally, we'll go for that. We'll get the bond and we'll deliver it as a highway service. So what I'm looking at with that is, if we price up the works, we get the bond, and then our services deliver that, and our internal teams finish that site. So attached to that now is the sustainable urban drainage systems. So then they've got to be maintained as well. So Medburn were really struggling on who's going to maintain that. So we've said our teams will maintain that on your behalf, but you as a land management company can pay us for that. So there's income there. So that's all being discussed now. It's not sealed with Medburn, but that's what I'll be doing going forward. Is imposing the legal term and go for surety, and then we'll deliver it ourselves as a highways authority. On the other part, so I think you're on about a section 184, which is an open and a drop curb on the highway.
Yeah.
So that's managed by the area teams. The section 184, so that's a drop curb crossing.
Yeah, whatever.
Access to driveways or things like that. They go through the local area teams, and either we deliver them internally, or they've got to prove that the contractor they use has done all the necessary steps. If there's an illegal one, then we take legal action against whoever's put that crossing in, if it's recent.
Right.
The challenge you've got with that is, if it's not recent and you enforce one, that just opens up a massive can of worms on a whole housing estate, where number 2's had one for 20 years. Why has the council not done something about that?
I've had one where the county council had to pay out £30,000, Sally, because of access. I don't think it went anywhere near highways. I think it was planning.
Right.
But it was a highways issue, and that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That long ago.
So part of this, what we're going to work closer with planning, but we're going to try and digitise, spatially plot everything. So if a highway inspector or someone's on a street, they've got all the information that's needed, what's happening on that street, so that we'll go and delve into the road repairs, but I said it wasn't. So if they've got to instruct road repairs, or it's a local transport plan, and we're going for a 3-year programme now, or TP. So if your local transport plan's in there, the developers going forward will know what our intention is for our roads and highways. And then we'll be engaged with them going, well, if you want to build here, this is what we had planned for 2028 or 2029. And then that hopefully will then feed into the 106 process. And then we'll have a lot more clarity on where that 106 money goes and that investment in the highway network. But that's only on new stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got the housing market nationally has dropped, hasn't it? So the Telegraph published something last week that nationally housing's dropped. So we can only impose these changes on new. There's a lot of old stuff that's been agreed and planned that's still coming through the system. So you probably it's like turning a tanker, isn't it? So you probably if the decision made the day, it'll probably take 3 years.
Mm-hmm. So can I just add, I mean, I think the important thing is, I mean, we have highways that come here for obviously overview and scrutiny, but I think the legal framework you have to work within, it might be an interesting thing if there's a paper. I mean, I've got the hierarchy of just all the legal, you know, the thing, it might be interesting for people to understand.
Well, I've got
I can do 1 or 2, but I can't do any more.
I've got a 3-page process I can share.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, any
shared a
information.
paper last year. We shared a paper for members last year and we published that to go because we were starting to get the noise last year. What about this? What about what you're not doing? So we had to explain that we're doing what we can. Yeah, we'll not be perfect. There's going to be challenges, but look.
Well, if you can circulate that to members of the committee.
Yeah, we've got the chart of
thank you.
The stages which we share.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sim.
I think you've been a little bit hard on yourself when you say that the council's not great either. I mean, that work not clicked on yourself, so I know it is right across the board, not just in Northumberland. It's certain particular developments.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I had this discussion last week in a meeting, and it would be great if we had a bit more power where we could say to certain developers where they're stalling on things and enforcement's not being used great, to maybe say, well, until you bring these developments up to standard, you aren't permitted to develop in the county any further. Maybe so pull the socks up and move forward a bit, because it's about money and they want to make.
Well, that's a very good point. I think one of the recommendations in the report is to encourage our MPs and the council to lobby for a change in the statutory powers the council has, because I think it's apparent that we don't have the power that many of the public think we do. And I think that's very important.
And that's gaining traction nationally as well. So the surveys gone out to local authority and councillors to say, well, what do you want to change? But it's a big industry, isn't it? With a lot of financial impact and a lot of national power and investment in infrastructure.
Some developers, I mean, like when I went to Northumberland, there was some great ones. You know, you put it to them, you said, right, there's an issue with this, and you'd see them go pull the road up till they got it right, and they didn't ask questions, they just did it. You didn't have to argue with it. Whereas some, they'll argue and argue and argue, and you know, and it is frustrating because a lot of people do get on the council, and it's always the council to blame, and I think maybe it's directed to developers and maybe split at the developers a little bit more. And
I think we will agree on that. Councillor Smith.
So a slightly different subject. We've got an invite to the laboratories tomorrow in Crovington. Is that still going on?
The date was the wrong date. It was the day.
Oh.
The date was what you got sent yesterday. Yeah, it should have had today's date on for the visit. The visit was this morning.
Well.
So that went out from Democratic Services a couple of weeks back, but we asked for a confirmation by end of play yesterday on numbers.
It's a bit short notice. So what have been interesting about looking and see the answers.
You missed a good morning.
Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah, breakfast, chicken sandwiches.
It went down well.
That wasn't any of that.
It's something that we will host again. If there's interest, we're more than happy to host it again because it is a good thing to see some of the crown jewels in.
Because you get a lot of crap from residents, the roads are crap, you never put potholes in. You've got very specific criteria to work towards.
Exactly. And a pothole's not always a pothole. And you've got to remember the council has a section 58 defence to justify if anyone hits that pothole, it's got to be to criteria. Yeah. But we're not getting.
We're going to potholes today. That will, you're going back. Come back next time. Potholes. Yes, you're going to be coming back to give us a report on those next time. Councillor Cesper, did you have anything to say?
Oh, yeah, no, not for an extra look.
I almost thought we were going to move it.
Yeah. So if, I mean, it was said down there, it's all about money. Of course, it's all about money. It doesn't do anything to get around. But when you first into your stage one, you tell them what they've got to do.
Yeah.
And then they're trying to wang out for one reason. So skipping that bit, if you don't adopt something,
yeah.
I mean, who's then responsible for those roads? And if we were sort of connected with local services and something like that, if they want, well, I mean, this happened to me once years ago, not me personally, a resident of mine, where, in the estate that was built in my ward, which was, the council refused to adopt this road because they hadn't done what they wanted to do. It was only small, and so they did what they was doing. There'd be no refuse things or anything like that put in. So who's responsible then for the private road? And I mean, if the landowner,
Or the resident.
so not the people who built it.
Well, it depends on which way you want to go because you've got these strips now that have been sold. So the resident got to pay for maintenance and things like that. So you've got that coming into play. But if it was a straight road, there was no section 38 in place, or we didn't agree, you would run through the 38 process and surety and all the rest of it. But if there was no 38, it's a private road and it's down to whatever agreement the householders would sign up.
If you think about it from another side, if these people who buy these houses, and a lot of them are bought on plan before they even built, they then don't have what they were expecting to get. So where's the legality?
Then they need a good lawyer, don't they?
You said them over the day. We're looking at in the future, so not so much on so we've been working with Ascent Homes as a highways department to complete Ascent Homes developments to get them to standard to adopt. So that's just a working arrangement we've had. We haven't engaged with the main contract as yet because they've got their contractors and they've got their terms and conditions and frameworks, and it's very, very difficult to work with them. But what we are looking at is section 278. So that's works directly on this highways being designed and built by the council.
Yeah.
So QTS is a good example. So the data centre that's got section 278 works. I've met with QTS and said, well, we just deliver them, makes complete sense. We'll incorporate it with the LUF scheme, the cycleway scheme that's been built with Camas. So we've got staff there already. We'll do this. It just gets automatically adopted. Medburn's a good example. And anything else that comes up, I'll be saying, well, if you can't complete it, we'll complete it and we'll adopt it. As long as there's enough money.
They pay.
Yeah.
Right.
Work for you, David.
Yeah, also, it's work for me. That's always good.
Proper conveyance.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for that report. And you've been coming back to talk about potholes.
Yeah, potholes
next month. Right. Okay.
Can you come with a? Can I ask? Yes. Can you come with a pothole 5 and the depth and give it to me?
What do you want to see? So I know we're slightly off topic,
the width, the depth.
Right, so you want dimensions of a pothole, what a pothole looks like in line with standard. Yeah. And what else would you want? Because we've done this multiple times over the years.
One in my hand. Very soon. It just shows you.
A 3D print.
Get a piece of paper. Put it in.
Some kind of visual aid, if you.
I'll get Georgie on it this weekend.
Absolutely, yes. Get her to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
But data-wise, do you want to say numbers? Do you want to say what we're running with the AI tool?
Insurance claim.
Right, claim. That's okay. Okay. Right.
All right. Yeah. So you've got a flavour of what we want. So
yes,
we'll look forward to that. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You've got your deadline.
Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to item 7, the work programme, monitoring report.
Yeah, as has been discussed, all things highways next month. In April, we've added the library service review, going back to talk about the outcome of the consultation. And also mindful of the issues that council deals with regard housing and issues around that. Obviously, to be added to the work programme, but we can't deal with
That's what he said, yeah, because we need some more. They will go.
Yeah.
Right, all in hand. That's all to be noticed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, can I just ask about small schemes allowance
Yes.
overview? It's actually it says examine the issues around the process and the implementation of the scheme. What I would like to know is how you can externally use your funding.
Externally.
For instance, if I wanted to, not say mend the pothole, but if I wanted to get somebody else to do something because it was cheaper.
Well, that was the original. That's how it was first came to the work programme. It was actually raised by myself and Councillor Gallagher maybe a couple of years ago about how come is it that a local contractor can do something cheaper than if you went through the members' school. So that was the original query, and that is the basis for the report coming back to.
Is it?
Well, I mean, there will be other issues around it.
Okay,
but to be fair, the original question was raised not last year, but the year before.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Well, I do remember raising it quite a few years ago because we put the thing into, well, I want X done, and they would come back, well, that's going to cost 30 grand. You think, well, it's not, it's going to cost you 5.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
That's the base report, but things have changed, and I think.
But that will be part of it. Yeah. So we're going to get that. Right.
we'll get it.
Yes, we'll get it. Well, yes, we can. Right. Thank you very much. That's no urgent business, so I'll close the meeting.